At the Olympic Games, many athletes win medals and achieve greatness, but after a while, most of them are forgotten. In contrast, only a few champions leave a legacy that stands the test of time, with their stories passed down through generations, making their names immortal. In this video, I want to tell you the story of one such individual. This is the story of a man named Abebe Bikila from Ethiopia. Abebe was born in 1932 in Ethiopia, coinciding with the Olympic marathon that year. At the age of 20, he joined the Ethiopian Imperial Guard and usually walked or ran the 20 kilometers between his home and workplace every day. Among the trainers of the Imperial Guard was a Swedish coach responsible for their training. When the coach noticed Abebe's talent, he decided to train him for marathon running. Abebe, being naturally gifted, competed in several Ethiopian marathon events, winning medals and even breaking the world record during one of his country's domestic competitions. In the 1960 Olympics, Abebe represented Ethiopia. On the day of the marathon, the weather was extremely hot, making the race even more challenging for the athletes. It was so difficult that the organizers decided to hold the race in the late afternoon to avoid the peak heat. Everyone faced tough conditions, but Abebe had an additional challenge. He didn't have proper running shoes. His shoes caused him discomfort, making it impossible for him to race in them. In an unexpected decision, he chose to run the marathon barefoot. The distance he had to cover? A staggering 42 kilometers. The race began with all the competitors wearing the best running shoes available at the time, while Abebe ran barefoot. At first, many runners surged ahead of Abebe. However, after the 20-kilometer mark, Abebe and one of his rivals overtook the rest with a significant lead. Ultimately, Abebe crossed the finish line 25 seconds ahead of his closest competitor, becoming the Olympic champion. Not only did Abebe win the race barefoot, but he also broke the Olympic record. Later, he remarked that he could have run another 10 to 15 kilometers that day. Meanwhile, some of the marathon participants didn't even make it to the finish line. That day, Ethiopia won its first ever Olympic gold medal, and Abebe, the barefoot runner, became a national hero. The Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie honored Abebe by promoting his rank in the Imperial Guard and awarding him the Star of Ethiopia medal, along with a house and a car. In the same year, during a state visit to Brazil, one of the Imperial Guard leaders attempted a coup, capturing the emperor's son and killing several officials close to the emperor. Although Abebe was part of the Imperial Guard at the time, he was fortunate to escape unharmed. He was briefly detained and interrogated, but was later released without further consequences. The coup ultimately failed, and the emperor quickly regained power. The following year, Abebe competed in the Athens Marathon, once again running barefoot and winning the race. This was the second and final time he competed barefoot. In the same year, he also won the Japan Marathon, but this time he wore Puma shoes as the company had become his sponsor. Abebe continued to win every marathon he participated in until the Boston Marathon in 1963. In that race, Abebe started strong, but cold winds from the nearby mountains caused him to fall behind, and he finished in 5th place. After this race, Abebe decided not to compete in any events until the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, dedicating all his efforts to training for the Games. However, just a month before the Olympics, Abebe fell ill and underwent an appendectomy. Despite this setback, he quickly resumed training and managed to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. Once again, he emerged victorious, becoming a 2-time Olympic champion. The second-place finisher crossed the line 4 minutes after Abebe. This was the first time in history that someone had won back-to-back Olympic gold medals in the marathon. Once again, Abebe brought home Ethiopia's only gold medal and returned to his country a hero. The emperor promoted him to an officer rank, awarded him another royal medal, and gifted him a house and a car. In 1965, Abebe ran in an exhibition marathon in New York. Less than a month later, he participated in another marathon in Japan, where he won yet again. In 1966, he competed in 2 international marathons, one in South Korea and the other in Spain, winning first place in both events. Abebe was unstoppable, dominating every marathon he entered, with no rivals able to challenge him. But then, at the same marathon in Spain, where he had won gold the previous year, things took a turn. This time, Abebe couldn't finish the race. His legs no longer had the strength they once did. Doctors diagnosed him with circulation issues in his legs. He traveled to Germany for treatment, but the German government refused to cover his medical expenses. Despite these challenges, Abebe managed to recover enough to prepare for the 1968 Olympics, aiming for a 3rd consecutive gold medal. However, just a week before the Olympics, he discovered that his shin bones were severely damaged and that he needed rest. Despite this, Abebe chose to compete. The Olympic Committee honored him by giving him the symbolic bib number 1, recognizing his status as a 2-time champion who had broken previous records. There was no one more deserving of that number than Abebe, a man who had always thrived under difficult circumstances. He managed to run 16 kilometers before being forced to withdraw from the race. The marathon champion that year didn't even come close to breaking Abebe's previous records. About a year later, Abebe was involved in a car accident while driving the vehicle gifted to him by the emperor. Tragically, the accident left him paralyzed. Abebe was sent to London for treatment, where he was warmly welcomed, even receiving a visit from Queen Elizabeth. Initially, his injuries were so severe that he couldn't move his head, but over time, he regained some strength and was able to use his hands. Despite these challenges, Abebe refused to give up. As his condition improved, he participated in wheelchair competitions and won a sled racing event at a Paralympic competition in Norway. In 1972, Abebe was invited as a guest of honor to the Munich Olympics, where he received a standing ovation during the opening ceremony. That year's marathon winner was awarded their gold medal by Abebe himself. Less than a year later, Abebe passed away at the age of 41 due to a brain hemorrhage linked to his earlier accident. Abebe's funeral was a grand event, attended by countless admirers. To this day, his memory lives on in Ethiopia, with numerous halls and stadiums named in honor of this unforgettable champion.